to episode 5 of Perkio Pitch Numbers and Nonsense. It's been a while. The reason for is a little quick background. I'm going to school. Just finished moving all my crap from Ohio to Utah. I've officially been here a year now. It's been a lot going on. So much that I don't want to put out a bad podcast, and I don't want to put out bad content and just lazy content just to push stuff out. I know sooner or later this is going to, hopefully blow up, pick up. The goal's to, really go and blow up with Rainy Ballers and really become something, But right now, I'm not going to put out bad content because in the early stages of everything, I'd rather put out 100 episodes spread out over time and make them good than make a bunch of really good episodes, okay episodes. I want to be consistent as possible. But that's enough with my powwow. That's my TED Talk. Let's get to baseball. So a lot has happened. I actually did make a trade deadline show, but I just could not get it out in time. And I did go through. I hit on a lot of my predictions. I missed on a lot of my predictions. And there's also guys who were traded I did not expect to get traded. Obviously, Skubal to the Dodgers was not a shocker. But there are some trades that did shock me and surprise me. But we're going to get into the standings real quick. I mean, real quick. I say that every time, but real quick. This is going to be a shorter podcast because, I don't have too much to talk about. I have watched a lot of baseball the past few days, but this upcoming week, I'll be able to watch some more, and we'll get another podcast out sometime next week. So, currently, right now, in the standings, in the AL East, honestly, nothing's changed too much since the last time we spoke. It's still the Rays, Yankees, Red Sox, Blue Jays, Orioles. The one thing that is still surprising me is the Rays keep winning, and the Rays are better. They upgrade their catching position at the deadline. They play small ball so well. They play good fundamental baseball. They remind me so much of, those 2016-17 Cleveland Indians teams. They run the bases well. They field well. They got good pitching. They got the bullpen. They have the good sticks in there. They don't strike out a lot. They got two of the top, I think, 3 to top 5 league batting average leaders. Chandler Simpson's a stud when it comes to just, running the bases and hitting. Yandy Diaz is great. Junior Caminero is great. They just have a good team. I'm not shocked they're in first place still. I do have the Yankees still winning the AL and going to the World Series this year because they are going to get healthy. But it does look like the Rays are going to win the division. Up 5 games it's not a lot, but it's a nice, blanket. But then you got the Yankees who are 5 games back. You got the Red Sox 8.5 back. Blue Jays 15 out. Orioles 15.5 out. But the thing is, those AL East teams are not dead, and they can easily make a wild card spot. But obviously, being 15.5 out, 15 out, and the Red Sox being 8.5 out, it's not looking too good for them. The AL Central today, and by the way, today is August 19th. I always forget to mention the date, but today is August 19th. You got the White Sox 66-60, who had a good series in Chicago, literally Chicago playing the Cubs. They are first in the division, up 4 games. The Minnesota Twins, who have now earned a wild card spot at 63-65. Cleveland Guardians 61-66. Tigers 61-66. And the Royals 54-74. The Twins are 4 behind. The Guardians are 5.5 behind. Tigers are 5.5 behind. The Royals are 13 behind. The thing is, I expected the Guardians to win this division, but they're lousy, and I think they're slowly dying. They're bleeding out. The best way to give you guys an analogy or an example of what it's like being the Cleveland Guardians fan this year is if anyone who's not familiar with actually how George Washington died, so there's a lot of history books that say George Washington died from pneumonia or sickness, which in some ways, in very small doses, that is accurate. But when he died in 1799, I think that was, he died, I forgot the exact year he died, but that's not the point. The point is, George Washington died because they truly believed in the late 1700s, early 1800s, if you were sick, if you had a disease, they would bleed you out. So what they did was they cut George Washington open and tried to bleed out the diseases. They tried to bleed out the sickness. And George Washington actually bled out and died. That's what it's like watching the Cleveland Guardians this year. You're watching a founding father, a president, someone you admire, someone you respect, and you're watching him just bleed out on the bed and you have no idea. But the thing is, the Guardians, you had expectations. You made trades at the deadline, getting Griffin, Lowe, Adele, Yoho. And you're just bleeding out slowly. Slowly bleeding out. Bleeding out and dying. That's the Cleveland Guardians this year. They had all their starting pitchers stay healthy. Their bullpen, majority of the guys have stayed healthy. Jose Ramirez, I kind of feel like that was the kiss of death. Jose Ramirez going down was the kiss of death for the Guardians. And he does not look healthy. He doesn't look good. And he was having a rough year to begin with. But you got the Tigers today, who lost a bad game. Bad game. So we'll get into Paul Skenes here a little bit later into the episode here. But the Tigers today lost to the Pirates. And I think the guy's name was Flores. Came in and hit in the 7th. Hit a home run to make it a 3-2 game. And in the 9th, off Jansen, he had a home run to tie the game. And Lau from the Pirates hit a ball off the foul pole to walk off the Tigers. The Tigers have to go, I think, on a crazy run to actually make the playoffs this year, to even make a wild card. They just don't have it. They just don't have it this year. And the kind of a sub note, I've been wrong, I think, the most I can really think about with, teams I think are going to make the playoffs, not make the playoffs this year, because it is so even. Everyone's catching hot, getting cold. But the one thing I was not wrong on, I think the Tigers being dead this year. They just don't have it. They don't have it. And the Royals, I hope you're doing okay, Bobby Witt. Cool story. Salvador Perez is the all-time franchise home run leader, but that's their season. AL West, just as bad as the AL Central. You got the Astros 64 and 63. You got the Rangers 62 and 65. Mariners 16 67. Angels 15 77. And then you got the, almost called them Oakland Athletics, the Sacramento or Las Vegas Athletics 49 and 78. Right now it goes, the Rangers are down 2 games. Mariners are down 4. Angels and Athletics are 14 and 15 games down. The Mariners have been such a letdown this year because they had the starting pitching, they had the bullpen, and their hitting has just been terrible. Hard ballpark to hit in. And, Cal Raleigh kind of taking a step back this year, which I think he'll bounce back, have another pretty good year. But he doesn't look healthy. He looks all over the place. They've had guys like Don Canzone kind of step up. Losing Luke Raley hurt. That's some power. Julio Rodriguez just threw a ball into the stands when they were losing like 19-0. I don't know. The Mariners might be cooked. And they had a lot of talent, and they have a lot of talent on that team. But, you got the Rangers, a team who I thought was going to die, still hanging around. But I thought the Mariners winning the AL West. And it's not looking like that right now. It looks like it's going to come down to either one of those 3 teams, obviously. I wouldn't be stunned and I wouldn't be shocked, surprised, if the Mariners do come back and win the division, because I think they probably do have the most talent of all the teams that are ahead of them somehow in some way. But good on the Astros and Rangers for competing, especially good on the Astros, team that people thought they were going to sell, and they held on. And they're 4-6 in the last 10, but they're a game over 500, and they're winning a really bad AL West team. And the thing is, it's crazy to me that there's only 3 teams in the AL who I think have a chance at the World Series, and they all play in the AL East. It's crazy here. NL East, you got the Braves, 74-53. Then you got the Phillies, 70-58, 4.5 back. You got the Marlins, 64-64, 10.5 back. The Nationals, 61-67, 13.5 back. Mets, 58-78, 16.5 back. Marlins had a good run. They're going to slowly die out. But I do think the Phillies and Braves, obviously, those are the 2 teams that I've liked in the NL East. I do like the Phillies. That's a team I think can make a nice run in the playoffs just because they're going to make us a wild card team. And you always have that one wild card team that has a run, and I think it's going to be the Phillies. But you got the Braves. I think out of all the teams leading their division, they're probably the weakest out of the Dodgers, Brewers. I would actually say the Cubs might be better than the Braves. I never thought I'd say that. Kind of crazy to me I'm saying that because I was really low on the Cubs this year. But, you got the Braves and the Phillies kind of duking it out. The Phillies are only 4.5 out. They're pushing back. You never know. Plenty of baseball left. I do think the Braves win a division, but you got the Phillies knocking on the door. NL Central. Brewers, 78-49. You got the Cubs, 74-54, 4.5 out. You got the Cardinals, 65-63, 13.5 out. You got the Pirates, 63-66, 16 games out. Reds, 61-66, 17 games out. Cardinals are lingering around. Pirates are kind of slowly dying out. The Cubs are playing really good baseball. Pete Crow Armstrong's awesome. Bregman's been kind of picking it up. Their pitching's picking it up. They got the right guys, but Holmes has been really good for the Cubs. Really, really good for the Cubs. But the Cubs are a team like the Phillies. If they make it as a wild card, you do not want to play them. I think the Cubs and the Phillies are 2 teams that can easily knock out a division-winning team in the playoffs easily. But yeah, it's going to be interesting for the Phillies and Cubs. I really think it's going to be easy to assume that the Brewers and Dodgers are probably your NLCS. But I don't know. Interesting wild card situation this year. NL West, you got the Dodgers, 76-51. You got the Padres, 68-60. And they're 8.5 out. You got the Diamondbacks, 67-61, 90. They're 9.5 games out. Sorry, I had a dyslexic moment there. The Giants, 22-74, 23.5 games out. And you got the Rockies going out, battling for the toilet bowl with the Giants. 15-76, 25.5 games out. Sounds like a typical Rockies season. To kind of touch on the Diamondbacks, the Ketel Marte thing is interesting. I don't know exactly everything that's going on with him. Just doesn't show up to the ballpark. They're saying his knee's hurt. I don't know. I wouldn't be shocked if he doesn't play for them the rest of the year. Also, I'm not going to be shocked if he gets traded in the offseason. He's always kind of had a hot and cold, odd relationship with the Diamondbacks. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what they do with him. Padres have been playing great baseball. They've been one of the best teams in baseball. They were like 16-4 last time I checked. The last few games, I'm not thinking about the last like 2 or 3, but up until that point, they were 16-4 in their last 20. They have been incredible. And the Dodgers are sliding, but people are like, oh no, the Dodgers are not as good as they always are. The Dodgers are not as good as this year. That's kafooey. They, in my opinion, are figuring out what works, what doesn't work, who they're playing, who they're not playing. This is spring training for them. And, Kyle Tucker, as a guy, I figured they're probably just trying to sort out, like, is this guy going to be worthy playing in the playoffs? Is Teoscar Hernandez and Kyle Tucker going to be a platoon in the playoffs? It's going to be interesting to see what they do. But to kind of touch on the wild card, like I said, we're going to go through these standings real quick because these can get a little long. But you got your wild card spots. You got the Yankees. You got the Red Sox and Rangers. The Yankees are 9 up from the last wild card spot. The Red Sox are 5.5 up. So those are looking like your wild card teams. And it's going to be a crazy race here because you got the Rangers, Twins, Blue Jays, Guardians, Orioles, Tigers, Mariners, all fighting for playoff spots. And here we go. The Rangers hold the 6th spot right now, but they are tied with the Twins. Or the Twins are actually ahead of them now because they have one more win. So it's actually going to be the Twins holding the 6th spot. So in the 7th spot, you got the Rangers a half game out. You got the Jays 1 game out. The Guardians 1.5 out. You got the Orioles 1.5 out. Tigers 1.5 out. Mariners 2.5 out. It's going to be really interesting. It's going to be a crazy September. And then you got the National League. You got the Cubs 6 games up in the last wild card spot. The Phillies 2 up in the last wild card spot. Then you got the Padres holding that last wild card spot. And this one's not as crazy, but still close. You got the Diamondbacks in that 7th spot, 1 game out. Cardinals 3 games out in the 8th spot. Marlins 4 out in that 9th spot. And you got the Pirates 5.5 out in that last 10 spot. I really thought the Pirates were going to possibly make the playoffs as a wild card, but Paul Skenes just kind of taking a dive really hard. But now we're actually going to talk about Paul Skenes. Paul Skenes, I think, is going to be totally fine. Is he having a bad year? Is he having a growing year? Is he having growing pains? Abso-fucking-lutely. Paul Skenes is going through it right now. But he gets to go home to Livy Dunn, so he's not having such a bad day. But long story short, I think it's a mechanical issue. I don't think it's fatigue. I think he's put on weight. I think it's a mechanical issue. He's got to work on it. Pirates are probably going to shut him down, and I have him in fantasy baseball, and that's like the worst feeling ever when you're going to playoffs with, needing guys. But I think he's going to be fine next year. And if there is a lockout, I think him pitching on a shortened season is actually going to do him more good. But who knows? I think he's going to be fine. A lot of people are kind of spazzing, saying, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, what is he going to do? What are the Pirates going to do? Like, pitchers go through growing pains. Pitchers go through mechanical issues. Pitchers figure out, like, hey, this is not working for me anymore. Guys like Greg Maddux, John Smoltz, Tom Glavine, I named the big three with the Braves. They had to change their game so much. So much. And sometimes it takes a guy a year or two to kind of go through those growing pains. There's not any guys that come off the top of my head that I can think about right now, but I do know for a fact I can look back in history and find guys who've had a bad year or two and they've kind of ironed themselves out and they're totally fine. One guy's Verlander. Verlander looks like he's done, and then boom, figures something out, stops throwing a curveball, throws a different curveball, throws a different fastball, and he's always kind of worked it out. And another guy I kind of want to transition to, who people have kind of been like, is he going to be good, is Travis Bazzana. Travis Bazzana, first overall pick in the 2024 draft. A lot of guys, well-known guys, taken after him who, in my opinion, are better baseball players, better players, more worthy of first overall picks. Bazzana's not been worthy of a first overall pick. And there's a lot of Guardian fans out there that go, oh, you're hating. Here's the thing. I called out Arias. I called out Jimenez. I called out Nolan Jones. I called out Bo Naylor. And I'm calling out Bazzana. Bazzana's going to be the best of those 5 guys, with Bazzana included. Bazzana's going to be a league average player. And I'm okay with it at this point. You know, if we can play this guy every day, 140 games a year for the next, 5 years, whatever. But I just don't think he's a major league second baseman. All he can really do is work walks, get on base. He has awful exit velo. He doesn't hit the ball hard at all. People will go, yeah, well, he hit 104 off the bat. If you're a major leaguer, you're probably going to get a hold of a few. You really are. You're a big leaguer. But how consistently are you doing it? Like, O'Neal Cruz is averaging 96 off the bat every time he hits the ball. Every time. You know what I mean? Not every time, but to average 96, Bazzana's averaging 88 miles an hour, and that is in the bottom third of qualified exit velocity. It's terrible. It's terrible. He is below average or under average or not good at almost every single baseball metric when it comes to offensive numbers. He can walk, though. I'll give him that. He can walk. He's giving me Andres Gimenez, Jason Kipnis vibes, kind of a mixture of both. You know, he has I think, the pretty okay athleticism of Kipnis, and he has it's hard to explain. It's really hard to explain, but he just reminds me of Andres Gimenez and Jason Kipnis right now combined, and, you know, if that's how the cookie crumbles, that's how the cookie freaking crumbles. That's how the cookie crumbles. But like I said, this episode is just going to be short and sweet. You know, this isn't the best episode. And I know I kind of went into, you know, I don't want to put out bad content, but I do need to get something out there. And the next episode is going to be way more in depth, way more with roster, you know, transactions, way more predictions. But right now, we need to get something out there. I need you guys to know that I'm okay. Everything's okay. But no, life's been busy right now, and I want to be able to give you guys the best show. And if I feel like I can't, I won't put one out. You know, the guy who runs Brainy Ballers, I'll have to ask him when you hear this. Let me know if I can say your name. But, you know, I did contact him, and I've not made episodes because I've listened back to him, and I'm like, I don't like it. This is probably an episode I'll listen back to and not like it. But right now, this is something I need to get out. My shows are going to be a lot better, a lot more prepared, but, you know, that's just how it is sometimes. And I'm doing this on my own right now, and, you know, eventually I'm going to be possibly hosting a football show. And here's the thing. I am a fucking moron when it comes to football. I know, you know, I can watch and know regular plays. You know, I know what the routes are. I know the defensive adjustments. I know those things. I watch every single Browns game because I'm a lunatic, but, you know, I don't watch a lot of NFL games in general if it's not the Browns, and, you know, I'm going to have to get in on that. So I'm going to be watching a lot of football, a lot of baseball, and part of me wants to do a fantasy football league so I can kind of have an idea of, you know, who's good, who's not, what's going on, you know, stuff like that. But one thing I do want to mention, and then I'll wrap this podcast up, I would like to do in the off season, you know, 30 clubs in 30 days thing, kind of like how MLB Network does it. But, you know, one club for every podcast to kind of get me through each week during the off season. But, you know, that'd be hard to do. So I might just do like 1 week of going through the NL East, AL East, etc., and going through all the teams and really dissecting who they need, what they need, their farm systems, really going in the depth. And with the off season, I think I'm going to be longer podcasts just because there's honestly more to talk about sometimes. I feel like there's less to talk about during the season because not a lot can change in a week. It can. But from the last time I spoke to you and I spoke to you now, so much has changed, and I can wrap that up in a 30-minute podcast, 20-minute podcast. I'd like to do more. I'd like to do longer, but, you know, sooner or fucking later, this podcast is going to pick up. It's going to be weekly. It's going to be maybe 1 or 2 a week. I'm going to have guests. I'm going to have other people joining the show with me, giving the input. But right now, like I said, I'm just putting this out there because I need to put something out there. And it will get better. Things will get better. And until then, I will say this. Goodbye for now. The Guardians season's probably over. And I'll be watching them tomorrow at 11:40 Utah time, and you'll probably be hearing my pain and agony and screams, sorrows and tears from my apartment. So if you hear a little girl crying anywhere, that'll be me. All right, guys. Good night, and I will talk to you later. Goodbye for now.